I was in Brazil teaching leadership for business owners, but about a couple of years ago now. And I had a chance to sit down before the course, before it was my turn to teach, with my translator. And fortunately, he was not just bilingual from Portuguese to English, but he was very fluent in English. In fact, he was born and raised in Portugal and learned English at Oxford in England. And so he didn't speak Texan English like I do. He spoke the Queen's proper English. And he was pretty easy on the eyes and a good guy as well. But a young, fit, athletic guy was probably the biggest key. And so as we talked about leadership and the learn to roar aspect, I'm going to skip ahead just a tiny bit to tell you this story. As we walked to the front of the room, he and I had made a pre-arranged agreement. And as we got to the portion of ownership, we both got down on the floor, and I turned to the crowd and I said, we're going to do some push-ups together. I forgot to do my exercise routine before I left the room, so I'm going to do that now. And my friend here is going to help me by translating to Portuguese so you'll understand what I'm saying. So as I'm saying each of these things, obviously he's translating. So we get down on the floor, and I said, I'm going to do my push-ups. And so I get down to do push-ups, and he gets down to do push-ups, and we're toe to toe, so we're facing away from each other, and everybody knows that they can see both of us, but we can't see each other. And so I start counting, and I do a push-up, and I do 2, and I do another push-up, and 3, and then I lay down and prop my head up, and I keep counting, and he keeps doing push-ups. And it got to about 10 before the entire crowd was going ballistic, and they're laughing, and some of them are hollering, and some of them are calling him by name, going, he's counting, but you're the only one doing push-ups. And really, they got the moral of the story, but they didn't apply it to themselves yet in that moment. I'll come back to that story in the next part of what we're going to talk about. What I want to talk about right now, though, is you've probably experienced the number of people who have a one-size-fits-all cure for diet, a one-size-fits-all cure for exercise. I know so many times I've seen the high-intensity programs, and so they tell you just go all out 100% or at least as much as you can for 5 or 10 minutes and then back off for a couple of minutes and then 5 or 10 minutes and then back off for a couple of minutes, or some will say 2 minutes and then 1 minute. So 2 minutes of 100%, whether it's sprinting or weightlifting as much as you can or whatever. And while those programs probably work while you're in your 20s and 30s, or there may even be some of those like the CrossFit that work when you're 50s and 60s and you're in better health than you have been all your life. But I have to ask the question, if you're like me and you have no cartilage in your knees, how do you modify that program? If you're like me and you're type 2 diabetic and you have to wrestle with all of those balances of not being overexerted because your blood pressure and your heart rate are impacted directly, and those are direct risks of diabetes, or your nutritional factors have to be a little bit different because your carb levels versus your protein levels still have to be balanced out because of the insulin intake, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I know there are other people that have issues like thyroid and high blood pressure and a history of strokes in their family. And so when I hear people say, well, it's simple, all you got to do is bam. When I think of learn to roar, the first word, relevant. Relevant means that it fits within the niche of and the specific needs of the individual being addressed. So if you're giving me an exercise program, it needs to be an exercise program that understands that I'm closer to 50 than 40. It needs to be an exercise program that understands I have no cartilage in my knees, and short of complete knee replacement, that probably isn't going to change anytime soon. It needs to be an exercise program that understands that I'm diabetic and I've got to watch my heart rate and my blood pressure and those kind of things. But I do love vigorous exercise, and I've lifted weights most of my life, and I love to play racquetball, and I enjoy jogging when my knees are not killing me. And so tailoring something around that is very specific. I have a younger sister who has a unique form of arthritis. They've actually had to replace bones in various parts of her hands because the arthritis isn't just in the joint, it's actually in the bone between the knuckles. She also struggles with a weight challenge, And as a result of that, sometimes has to use a walker just to go from one room to the next. Now, if somebody were to say to her, "Hey, listen, it's simple. Lay off the ho-hos and the cupcakes, and get out and run around the block 6 or 7 times," they're really not relevant to the condition she's in right now. So as we're launching into a new season in our lives, whether it's the new year or it's getting ready for the summer or getting ready for the fall, I had a conversation just yesterday with a personal trainer, very fit. She's been a runner all of her life. She's 5'11", and probably less than 135 pounds. Very, very fit. Just over 50 years old. And she said she's competed in the Masters as a bodybuilder. She's not doing it right now, but she has a personal trainer and holds down a full-time job and has 3 kids at home. So it's not impossible for anybody. But one of the things she mentioned as a personal trainer was how tough it is to be in business as a solopreneur, as a personal trainer. And I said, well, I can imagine, like many other things, personal growth is very similar in that we have an ebb and flow that tends to follow the year. Everybody wants to get in shape and get their life right and get their mind right and get their habits right in January. And then most people fade off about March. And then they realize summer's coming, school is out, things are about to change, the job market is going to change a little bit, people are going to be moving, new opportunities might arise, but I need to have my summer body back. And then the fall comes and the weather is not as conducive to being outside, and school is really heavy right now and work is really heavy right now as everybody tries to get ready for the holidays. And then, let's not even talk about the holidays. Who has time for personal growth or personal fitness in the holidays? We're all going to overeat and we're all going to sit around too much and we're all going to talk to family, right? And so being relevant when the cycle of life makes an exercise routine or a nutrition routine complicated to get started. And until it becomes a lifestyle, like Jim Gardner, who lost a lot of weight many, many years ago and has never put any of it back on. I know he's up right now. I don't know if he's watching or not, but yeah, he's probably been up about an hour and a half at this point. It's really important to set your routines and set your lifestyles and make it a habit of being healthy, of doing healthy things, from your diet to your exercise routines, doing the things that are relevant to you and your lifestyle, because nobody can do it but you. And no one knows what your body needs until you find a professional who understands the processes and understands the needs of your body, who can help you walk through the nutritional needs, the exercise needs, the sleep needs, the hydration needs that your body has. And remember, just like socks, everybody has a pair, and most of them stink when it comes to opinions about your health care and your nutrition. But seek a professional and get good advice and then follow it diligently. But back to my story. When it comes to ownership, we have to understand that no one can do your push-ups for you. No one. And so in the demonstration in front of this class of people who are learning how to be better leaders in their business, when I got to the ownership part of Learn to Roar, I said, in your business, no one's going to mind your P&Ls. No one's going to mind your operational costs. No one's going to pay any attention to, could I get that for a better buy? Am I providing the right services for my clients? Do I have the right people on my team? No one cares about that like you do. And when it comes to your health, no one cares about it like you do, or like you should. Maybe your spouse is a threatened survivor thinking, if you don't take care of yourself, I'm going to be here by myself, and I don't like that idea. If you're not taking care of yourself, who will? If you're not controlling what you put in your mouth, if you're not doing the exercise necessary, if you're not getting the proper sleep, if you're not getting proper hydration, if you're not taking supplements that are necessary for your body type, for your lifestyle, who will? See, as we continued to do our push-ups, everyone looked on, and some of them got downright frustrated because they knew and liked my interpreter. And while he was doing push-ups and I was lazily counting, they were astonished that he would continue to do them. We got to about 15 before we got up and high-fived each other in a big hug, and they realized that was a part of the gig. That was part of the whole thing. We were pranking the entire audience. You have to take ownership. No one can do your push-ups for you. No one. No one can get on the treadmill. No one can walk around the block. No one can change what you put in your mouth. No one can change the temperature, if you will, of your body. Do you get into a sweat? Do you get your heart rate up? Do you do that on a regular basis? Nobody can do that for you. That's on you. And you have to take ownership of it because it's your body. I was reading a post from a gentleman last night. Believe he's a pastor. And I don't remember exactly when we met, but Derrick Gates is a guy who, over the last few years, has taken ownership of his own physical health and dropped, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments down there, Derrick, but I believe you said close to 300 pounds. 300 pounds. Now, I tagged him in this so that you can click on it and go to his timeline and see the before and after pictures. But I think there was a profound statement. As we move into the authority category, between ownership and authority, there's a fine bridge. Ownership says it's my challenge to deal with. It's my problem. And if I don't deal with it, it won't be dealt with. But authority says, I've done that. I've experienced that. I've walked through it. You may not believe it looking at me right now at about 225. At one time, I was 298 pounds myself. And people look at you differently. People treat you differently. The way people converse with you is different. And Derrick Gates is a testimony to that. In fact, it was on his timeline that I'm reminded that he said 300 pounds ago, people treated me differently. And they do. You know, this sounds obnoxious, but it's true. There's this psychological phenomenon that people have set up expectations for all of us. If you go to get car insurance now, do you know that you can get a better rate if you allow them to check your credit and you have good credit? But if you allow them to check your credit and you have bad credit, your insurance rates go up. What difference does it make what your credit report says? I mean, everybody's got a little student loan, right? Everybody's got a little medical bills, right? Everybody's got a little credit card they didn't pay off, right? Everybody's been late on a car payment or two, right? See, every one of those things impacts your credit report, and everything that impacts your credit report now can impact your health insurance, your life insurance, your car insurance, your homeowner's insurance. Why is that relative? Here's why. Because even though we don't all say it the same way or even know how to say it at all, we subconsciously know that how you do anything is how you do everything. If you're the kind of person that cheats on your diet, you might cheat on your spouse or cheat on your taxes or cheat your employer and not show up on time. If you're the kind of guy that just lets the bills go and doesn't pay them, you might also skip out on your insurance. You might also not take care of your cars. I don't know if you know this or not. I'm tying this all together. You got to trust me. You know that there's a big thing about stop and frisk as a police practice, especially in New York City. It's been in the news for decades that the stop and frisk policy was a racial profiling policy. Well, it's really not. I sat through several citizens police academies and citizens on patrol and those types of things, Code Blue, those types of trainings. I've done many of those, if not all of them, over the last few decades. And as I listen to some of the things that the police officers say, you know, the idea of seeing a car in your neighborhood that doesn't normally belong there. If it's a high-end car, you should report that soon, especially if it's parked in a place like next to the city, next to your neighborhood park, or next to a school, not next to a house. Maybe if they're parked near a house, they're a visitor. But if they're not, that car may be stolen and abandoned there so that it looks like it's not abandoned. But if it sits there for more than 24 to 48 hours, there's a high probability that car was stolen and taken for a joyride and then just left somewhere inconspicuous. Probably a long way from where it was supposed to be. But it could have been used in an Amber Alert. You never know. But police departments like you to report something like that. In the same way that they look for abandoned cars and they mentally judge the condition of that car as to whether it's abandoned or broken down and abandoned, stolen and abandoned, used in a crime and abandoned. How did this car get in this neighborhood when it doesn't really belong here and no one visiting knows who it belongs to? See, that starts to open up a lot of questions. In the same way, if you pull up at the stoplight and your license plate light is out, that's just cause for the police officer to have a conversation with you. If it turns out that you've got a tail light out or a couple of tail lights out, or you've got a car that's not inspected or a car that's not registered, see, all of these things go into a psychological profile that the police officer looks at and says, if you're not taking care of the car that you drive, if your brakes are in ill repair, if your tires are out of drivable condition, if your inspection sticker is expired, it tells me you have this tendency to not take care of things you should have taken care of, which is usually a pretty good sign that if you've had a ticket in the past, you probably now have a warrant, and we need to take care of that. So yes, that whole psychological profile, we all do it. If you run into someone standing in line at Starbucks, ask yourself this honest question. If their shirt is mismatched in the buttons and one side of the collar sticking way up and the other one's way down here, or they've got some stain on their shirt, something that's glaringly obvious that everybody else has noticed and they don't seem to care about it, doesn't that trigger some kind of judgment in you? When you see someone who just doesn't dress in a way that looks like they mean business or that they're serious about their life, doesn't that leave some underlining comment in the back of your mind? Yes, it does. You can say you're not judgmental, but it's a natural reaction. We all know that how you do anything is how you do everything. And the authority in your life is a double-edged sword. The experiences that you bring from taking ownership of your health, taking ownership of your diet, taking ownership of the things that allow you to live and live well, that transition of ownership is what gives you authority. Having done what you're supposed to do in the area of your finances, in the area of your relationships, in the area of your own personal growth, in the area of your fitness, in the area of your nutrition, all of those things that you've done in ownership that you were supposed to do, travel over into authority because you now have the experience of having done them. You know what it takes to get there. You know what it takes to do it. But your authority is undermined when people question the way that you take care of yourself, the way that you dress yourself, the way that you treat your car. Ask yourself this question. You walk up to hand somebody something in your car or just have a chat with them in the parking lot. Is it your tendency to look around inside their car and see if there's, potato chip crumbs and trash all over the inside of their car? Do you also make that judgment pretty quickly as to, well, maybe they have kids and that's why their car's a mess, or maybe they just went on a long road trip, that's why their car's a mess? Or do you think, wow, I'm not sure that I trust this person at the same level anymore because they don't even take care of their own space. Their house, their car is probably all a mess, which means their desk is a mess, which means their mind is a mess, right? We all do it. Is it good or is it bad? Is it right? Is it wrong? I'm not even going to talk about that judgment today. What I am going to tell you today is the way that you take care of your nutrition and your fitness will either enforce, reinforce, or undermine the authority that you have in conversations with other people that you want to do business with, that you want to build a relationship, et cetera, et cetera. I know there are women now that when they go to the dating site and they start dating a guy, they do a background check and a credit report check before they agree to the first date. No joke. Serious stuff. How you do anything is how you do everything, and that's where your authority comes from. And finally, let's talk about responsible. Because if you've found the program that's relevant to you, and you're using the right nutrition, and you're using the right fitness programs to be healthy, you've taken ownership of that, and no one is doing it but you. You're focused on it yourself, you're paying attention to it yourself, you're dedicated to it yourself, and you're getting it done. Then you have built a level of authority even in that area of your life that other people will look at you and go, wow, they take care of kind of everything. All of those aspects of their life are on the highest level. That's really good. But are you responsible enough to know that the impact that you're leaving, whether it's as an eyewitness, your children or your neighbor's children or the people who work for you or the school kids that you spend time with or talk to or the neighborhood kids, when they drive by and your lawn is immaculate and your car is gorgeous and you're a slovenly pig, it's a little bit of a problem with that, right? But you will notice that people who live in nice houses, who drive nice cars, who have good jobs, generally have taken care of their health as well. Not always, but generally. Why? Because they know how you do anything is how you do everything, and everyone is watching. and that everyone is watching is the final part of what we want to talk about and learn to roar. We've been relevant, we've talked about ownership, we've talked about authority. Now we've got to talk about being responsible for how we portray ourselves and convey to the next generation and the people around us. If we're slovenly pigs, people who watch us will become slovenly pigs. It's not hard to follow that. How you do anything is how you do everything, but we also all live, as John Maxwell puts it, by the law of the picture. And the law of the picture says people do what people see. If they see you living a life that is not concerned with your health or your well-being, chances are they will as well. Why do you think, besides genetics, that families tend to be in the same size and shape, have the same diets, have the same habits? Because of the proximity. People do what people see. Parents who smoke tend to have children who smoke. Parents who drink tend to have children who drink. Parents who have a high sugar, high fat, high carb diet tend to have children who have a high sugar, high fat, high carb diet. People do what people see. When it comes to health, learning to roar also means that you are consciously aware of the impact that your diet, your exercise, your nutrition plan has on your kids, your grandkids, the people in your immediate circle, the people you work with. And if you run a company, your fitness is an image impact to everyone in your organization. The priority that you put on their fitness is as well. Where my wife works full-time, they actually offer certain points toward your medical savings account and other bonus programs within the company for belonging to a gym, for walking a certain number of steps every month, for having a nutrition program. Those things are very important. Why? Because the company knows that if your healthcare costs are low and your nutrition value is high and your exercise is high, your longevity in the workplace is going to be higher and your productivity while you're there will be as well. Are you responsible, not just for how you take care of yourself, taking ownership to build authority, but also are you feeding into the next generation, your employees, your family, your children and grandchildren, a good example? Because people do what people see. They're watching your nutrition, watching your fitness, watching how you take care of yourself and your business. I challenge all of you to learn to roar, to apply this filter. Am I relevant? Have I taken ownership? Am I building authority? Am I responsible for what outcomes are following? To apply that to so many other things. Tomorrow we're going to talk about how that impacts your family. Learn to roar, leadership philosophy, overlaying family. That's for tomorrow's program. I hope you'll be back here, right here on Tell It Like It Is TV. I am J Loren Norris, and it has been my honor to be with you today. Make sure you crush that little subscribe button and the like and share button down there. Leave your comments, share it with friends, and if there's a question that you have, I would love to hear it. Remember, you can subscribe right here on Facebook Live, on YouTube Live. Of course, it's archived on YouTube, easily to find. Just search for my name, J Loren Norris. And if you'd like to get all of these videos downloaded to your phone, there's over 520 of them at this point. They are all available on iTunes Podcast. Just search J Loren Norris when you get there. I am J Loren Norris, and you've been watching Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.